100%. Copying other people, like hands down, copying other people. This is something that I feel like ruffles a lot of feathers, and I experienced this in a number of meetings and talks with other people. A lot of people are like, look at what this person is doing. Look at this thumbnail. Hey, they're using primary colors here. It's not too, busy with this, and they're like focusing on very specific dialogue points, and retention graphs, and they're literally mimicking other people. Sometimes the thing about it is it works, and they go, wow, it works. We copy this thing. We copy this post, this piece of content. But the issue with it is that you begin to really blend in. And that's also another thing that happens with even AI content as well. Like a lot of it is just mimicking other pieces of content. So, yeah, 100%. So, what ends up happening is everyone just looks like everyone. And the viewer, the person that is actually consuming your content, starts to go, oh, this is boring. I've seen this before. So what's the actual purpose in creating content if it's not true creation? So it's a very dense topic as well, and we can dive into it. But yeah, it's something that's like actually really annoyed me over the past, because so many people are just like hell bent on making content that is already working from other people. But like if I sat down right now and tried to crack jokes like Jim Carrey, you probably wouldn't find it too funny because I'm not Jim Carrey. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a personality thing.
All right, welcome everybody back to the Full Battery Media Podcast. I am your host, Sean Trace, and I have an awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So, I'm Peter Nicholas. I am a founder of a new media asset management called Square Glass. So I used to work in video and content creation for a number of years. I used to do audio mixing, engineering, mastering as well for my own Mixed by Peter studio that I have. And yeah, so I've basically kind of come full circle in terms of creation, content creation, and software for businesses that do that. So I'm basically here to kill the chaos that you get with asset management, and for content teams trying to scramble and find their content and get things out faster in a day and age where things are moving at rapid pace.
Nice. That's one of the things I don't think people realize is that one of the things that's so hard is organization. Like when you're dealing with content and you're dealing with the massive amounts of content that teams are doing these days, I'm going to be flying through Singapore, and just for my own channels, like my own content channels, I have a 12-hour layover in Singapore. So I was like, what would anybody who has a media company do? I'm like, let's make some content. So I'm going to be filming and sending stuff back to my team, and I'm going to be filming about 180 shorts, and I'm just like, all right, cool. Let's have some fun. Let's knock these out. And, when you're trying to figure out how to move things, how to store things, how to catalog things, it's one of the areas that, we sit there and go, hang on, what hard drive is that on? Where are we storing that asset? What location in the cloud is that? It's like there's so many different places that things can go. What caused you to like sit there and go, hang on, we need to create a solution here for this problem I'm having?
Literally chaos. It was literally chaos that drove me to come up with a solution. And when you think about it like this, if you're doing 180 pieces of short form content, you can probably do it. You can do it in a few long forms, cut that up. You can do deliberate, like 180 pieces. Okay, this is what we're going to plan. But when it comes to actually sourcing things as well, you really do fall to the level of your systems. I think there's a saying about that as well. And that was something that I was, let's say, slapped in the face with when I was putting out lots and lots of content for a company I used to work for. And as things kept growing, and obviously the platforms create more demand, that was when it was like, okay, where is this clip? Where is this piece of footage? Did we upload that? I'm pretty sure we uploaded that last month. Hang on, let me check. I can't find it. And so all of a sudden, that goal that you have of hitting, say, for example, 180 pieces of short form content now becomes a serious grind. And you're starting to lag behind in your health, in communicating with others. Your team doesn't know what's going on. So even just as a person, you start to just get lower and lower in your capabilities because you can't find anything. And it's almost like being a chef in a kitchen and being like, well, I'm pretty sure I have the right tool or piece of equipment or ingredient for this dish, but I can't find it. And now I've got these dockets and receipts just stacking up. So that's pretty much what it was, you know?
Uh, I'm completely understanding of that because, like when you are, and it's like people don't understand that when you're creating these things, a simple little mistake can cause major problems. I was filming something the other week and I shot a music video for my wife, and I was the one who filmed everything. And I knew that there was one shot that was a money shot. It was beautiful. It was a gimbal shot. It was a close up shot. I'm moving around her while she's singing this scene and this one song. And I'm getting there to edit, and I had my team line up everything, prep everything as I was going to jump into my edit. And I'm about halfway through this, 5-minute music video. And I was like, where the fuck is my shot? Like, it's not here, And like, I was just like, that shot, I know that shot is the one. And I went digging through all my assets, and then it had gotten missed. And by a very senior editor who was very good at her job, but yet it was just not as easy to find and locate. And so I was like, I dragged that down, and then I was like, oh, thank goodness I found that. But
Mhm.
for people that are operating at scale, that are doing even more than that, that was one small project. It's easy to lose things. And the chaos is real, man. And that's one of the things that I'm interested in, because like, as you are working with people who are trying to, or you have these assets for, let's say, if someone's new to content creation and they really are, how can your tool help someone who's just coming up through the ranks, trying to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was starting off and I was trying to figure out how do I make all of this work together, how do I go from ideation through to filming something, scripting something, editing something, color grading, doing the audio, you know,
Right.
finalizing the product, the whole piece, right? How do I do it? And you can fumble your way through it and go, well, I will just rename something and I'll just quickly do this. And you can figure it out somehow. But the problem with doing that is that you start to ingrain systems within yourself that, oh, I do things in a messy way. The way that this would
Yeah.
directly help a person is that it would train them to think and operate in a systematic way that just works from the get go. So, for example, the software that I've created has integrated AI tagging. So you upload something and it automatically tags something, it scans the content. And so it's already tagged. You can find it in the system. You can add a custom tag if you want, depending on your workflow. But doing that from the get go, from a beginner standpoint as well, is already taking away or like releasing the brakes from your content. So in
Yeah.
terms of speed as well, and you know what it's like, right? As creators, we have this creative engine that's running, and as soon as we start seeing roadblocks, kind of like the ones you experienced, taking your daughter to school and all that kind of stuff, all of a sudden everything starts to get frantic. All of a sudden you start to lose the flow. So I feel like
Right.
from an early standpoint, being able to get used to having a flow going, because that creates
Yeah.
momentum, is incredibly important.
100%. Like when things start breaking down and you start getting that stuck energy, and it can be something as simple as, I love this one guy who's called Admiral William McRaven. His name is Admiral William McRaven, and he wrote this book. He was like the head of the Navy SEALs on like for all of the U.S., and he was the guy who's partially responsible for helping to go get Osama bin Laden. Now, why am I talking about him with content? Because he's got this great book called Make Your Bed, and he's like, it's these 10 principles for life. And one of his basic things is you start off with the simplest stuff. Like, you really have to keep his whole book is the concept is like the first, at least first couple chapters, is keeping organized is the biggest way to accomplish something big. We want to, I want to be as big as Mr. Beast. I guarantee you, Mr. Beast has a ridiculously organized file structure system that they have databases upon databases to catalog, to store, to organize, so that these people don't realize they're not just making a video. Like, they have each video as a self-contained unit, but like they might go, hey, remember that time that we filmed that? We need to reference that in this video. Where's that content at? Where are those source files at? And someone's got to go and go digging through that. Or, hey, we have this shot, this hero shot of us on an island. We need to pull that into this current video. If you're not organized, there is no way that you're going to be able to go and find that, you know? And some people, I feel bad, but some people are like, well, I just dumped that old content. And like, I would tell people, just don't get rid of old stuff, man. If you've shot it, store it, you know, have it, because you never know when you'll be able to use that again. But, you know, one of the things too is like, as people are creating these tools and building, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you saw people making when trying to grow their content, you know, because you've been there, you've seen it, you know?
100%. Copying other people, like hands down, copying other people. This is something that I feel like ruffles a lot of feathers, and I experienced this in a number of meetings and talks with other people. A lot of people are like, look at what this person is doing. Look at this thumbnail. Hey, they're using primary colors here. It's not too busy with this. And they're like focusing on very specific dialogue points and retention graphs. And they're literally mimicking other people. Sometimes the thing about it is it works. And they go, wow, it works. We copied this thing. We copied this post, this piece of content. But the issue with it is that you begin to really blend in. And that's also another thing that happens with even AI content as well. Like a lot of it is just mimicking other pieces of content. So
Right?
yeah, 100%. So what ends up happening is everyone just looks like everyone, and the viewer, the person that is actually consuming your content, starts to go, "Oh, this is boring. I've seen this before." So what's the actual purpose in creating content if it's not true creation? So it's a very dense topic as well, and we can dive into it. But yeah, it's something that's like actually really annoyed me over the past, because so many people are just like hell bent on making content that is already working from other people. But
Yeah,
like if I sat down right now and tried to crack jokes like Jim Carrey, you probably wouldn't find it too funny because I'm not Jim Carrey.
right.
So you know what I'm saying? Like it's a personality thing.
100%, man. There was that lady that got famous for like doing Jim Carrey impersonations. And
Mm,
then people were like, that's really interesting for 2 seconds. And then she was done. And where do you
hmm
go from that? Like, there's nowhere to go with that. Jim Carrey could come up with new stuff because he was Jim Carrey, you know, and just Jim Carrey doing certain things. If you're just impersonating Jim Carrey, there's nowhere to go with it. And like, one of the things too, if you can take an idea, like my daughter was like, we have a YouTube channel for my daughter called Ilani's Little World. And it's something super fun that I do with my daughter. And we have a blast doing stuff together. It's like science and STEM and fun educational content. This weekend we had like 20 different animals in our house. Like we had like animal handlers come in. We had like a absolutely terrifying type of scorpion that's like from South Africa. And it shoots venom. We weren't able to take it out of the case, but it was like it shoots venom with its tail. It just doesn't sting you, it shoots it. And I was just like, that's rad. Terrifyingly awesome, but rad. But one of the things too, like my daughter and I were talking, she's like, all of these YouTube channels do challenges. And she's like, but you know what? They give away money. They've got a lot. And I said, yeah, we can't do that. Daddy doesn't have a ton of money. I'm not handing out, let's go give someone $20,000 for, no, we're not doing that, you
right.
know? But like, one of the things too is like, I said, but how can we look at that and make it something that's uniquely us, you know? Because she's like, they have this challenge where like, can I guess if it's my mom? I said, but that's not our channel. Like, that's not, you know, we're not trying to guess if something's your mom with a modulated voice. I said, well, what do we do? Well, we talk about animals and STEM and stuff like that. I was like, okay, well, how about if we have three experts on and you have to guess which one is the actual animal expert? They all give us advice on how to interact with a poisonous snake. And then you have to guess which one is the actual snake expert from what they say. You know, that's entirely new. It's kind of like understanding what the trends are, but it's ours. You know, it's like something I don't think I've seen anyone else doing that. You know, and I'm looking forward to hearing snake advice from people who have no idea what they are talking about. You know, it's a king
Yeah.
cobra. What should I do? Grab it by the face. All right, let's see if that's the correct answer. You know, ah, you know,
This is a great idea. I really love the fact that you've come up with that type of content and channel with your daughter. This is what's really interesting about content, because gamification is a huge part of content. So, gamifying the way that things are done, there's obviously the direct way of doing something, which is like, okay, here's the basic knowledge. You could search this on Google, Wikipedia, wherever you search, ChatGPT. But then there's also like, let's gamify things that people may or may not know, or if there's any doubt
Yeah.
involved, let's dig into that. And that can be a really useful way of doing something, especially temporarily, like until you do start earning money on the channel or through
Yeah.
endorsements or anything like that. It's a really creative and unique way to do it. I really like what you're doing. I actually think that's a great idea.
The challenge though is I had to balance out two things. Like the channel took off and then it died as the algorithms kind of changed. And if we were doing a lot of green screen stuff, because I started the channel during COVID and we couldn't go out and film places and we were limited on what we were able to go out and do. And so kind of like the green screen stuff was deprioritized. And so we had to go back to the drawing board and adapt. And, I was trying to do things the same old way that we had done them, but it was interesting because the person who told me that we needed to make a shift was my daughter because she was doing her research. She's like, Dad, I can tell you how we can get the channel really big. We've got to do this. And for a second, I was like, and I was like, wow, that's actually a really great idea. And the fact that she was interested and had her involvement, was able to buy in. And I think that plays into something else that I think is really important today is that you have to enjoy the content you're making. Otherwise, if you're not enjoying it, like certainly one of the things that I see a lot of creators that I work with, most of the people that I work with, the creator fatigue. They do not realize the amount of energy that's going to be required to really sustain this thing. So, reason like when I work with people, I prefer to have my team work with people that have a little bit more experience under their belt than pure beginners. Not that I don't like working with pure beginners. Pure beginners are great, but I think a lot of them don't understand what's required to keep this going. It's a lot to it.
It's a long term game. And you're basically shaking hands on a deal that is going to take you years to not only just gain traction, but to also realize a lot of things about your ideal consumer profile as well. Obviously, we have ICP in business for customer profile, but consumer profile. And it also goes a long way to think of what are those people like that are watching your video? How do you know what they're like when you start out? Like you're getting to
Yeah.
know somebody. You're actually establishing relationships with hundreds of thousands of people. And that takes time. So there's a lot of things that you can do during that time to start to discover what those people like a bit more. And through that process, you can begin to really enjoy the content that you're putting out. But you might also realize that maybe you don't enjoy what it is that you're doing. And that's okay. You can pivot, you can change. You don't have to
Right.
stick to the same thing. You're not in jail. So yeah, it's a dense topic once again. A lot of these things that we're talking about today are very dense topics. I
Right.
would never I would never sell somebody like this is exactly how you're going to enjoy doing something or this is exactly how this is going to work because it
Yeah.
is completely dependent on the creator and only you
Right.
know as the creator what exactly it is that you're going to be doing for a long time through the process.
And I do like you pointed out that you pivot because I have found that on a couple of my channels, I have a lot of content. I have a couple of podcasts that I put out. And my Sean Trace show is like I would be called flagship. That sounds arrogant as fuck. But it's like the one that I started first. But it was interesting because when I started that channel, it was more content based. I was talking to people about content. But then what I found naturally kind of shifted into was like I wanted that to be kind of more self-helpy. But then I still love talking about content. So I created this full battery media podcast because I really like talking about content. But that was a pivot because as I noticed things evolving, I just said, well, all this stuff can't really live in the same place because, people are going to get kind of confused about what they're looking for. But, I want to ask you this because if someone has 0 followers today, what's the fastest way they can start growing?
Being consistent. And it's once again, it's one of those things that people don't want to hear, but they need to hear, like legitimately need to hear. If you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, I'm in that boat, like a lot of people that I've spoken with, and I'm seeing, Mr. Beast, I'm seeing Eric, I'm seeing like, Ryan Trahan, all of these people, all these creators, and they've got millions of views and they're traveling the world and they're doing these crazy things. I want to be doing that. And I'm still not doing that. The thing is, I worked in a content team for a number of years, and that very channel that we were doing only reached over 1 million views on a video after about 6 years of
Yeah.
starting that YouTube channel.
Right.
Right. So this is the thing. It's not to say that you can't do a specific video after 1 month of creating a channel and it just goes viral. It's not to say that that could happen,
It
but
could be.
let's look at what is typically required and involved, especially in 2026. You know what I'm saying? Because
It's
this is
saturated.
the
Yeah.
reality. Yeah,
One of the things too, I think that I love that what you're saying there because it is 100% like that. Like there is everyone has this vision that they're going to be like, dude, I talk to people about this and like, they're like, you know what? I've been thinking about that. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And I was like, oh, cool. What do you want that to look like? You know, they're like, well, you know what? I really want it to drive the people to my business. I want it to do this and that. I was like, okay. I mean, I think that it can, but we're going to have some time. And they were like, well, what do you mean? I said, your first 10 videos are going to be you figuring out your shit. Like, you know, just how to look at the camera. Am I talking here? Am I talking here? Am I talking here? You know, little things like that are going to be the things that take people the time to figure it out. And then after, you know, video number 20, you're starting to get it. What was it? Mr. Beast, I think, said that you got to have at least 100 videos until you actually kind of know what you're doing. And at that point in time, you're still kind of a beginner, you know, because it's like for me as a martial artist, I studied judo and I got a black belt in judo. And one of my teacher pulled me aside, and once I got my black belt, he looked at me and smiled, and he says, "Now you're just beginning. Now the fun begins." And I was like, "Oh," because he's like, "Now you know how to kind of control yourself. Let's go and see what you can do and play with this." But you know, it leads me to ask you this. You talk about staying consistent, but how do you stay consistent with content when everything feels messy and overwhelming? You know, like the chaos that you were talking about earlier that gets overwhelming for people. How do people stay consistent even amongst all that?
it's a great question. I really do believe that the way that you stay consistent is by having a solid purpose. And the purpose is defined through experiences that you have in your life.
Yeah.
So if you were to start, like if I asked you directly, Sean, if I said, okay, you want to create a business, and this specific business is something that you really like and that you really want to do, how would you find how would the people that are going to purchase your business or get good use out of your business really benefit if it's so much about you? And the same thing comes back to people creating content and being consistent. If you don't have a solid belief and drive to better other people's lives and be of service to other people for your content and for a business, because I feel like they're kind of similar, then I don't think you have much of a leg to stand on in this situation. So if you've got a very solid why, as people talk about, you've got to have a solid why, then that creates consistency naturally. So from my experience, whenever I've done something that's been more about myself, it hasn't lasted very long. Oh, I really want to get on camera and talk about something that I'm really passionate about. Or I really want to talk about, how great you can make a snare drum sound in an audio mix or something like that.
Yeah.
Just like nuanced little things like that. And people can kind of go, yeah, this guy, maybe he sounds like a scientist or he knows what he's talking about, but I don't really see how it benefits me. And then what happens is you get no result after no result after no result, and it doesn't really serve anybody, including yourself. So if you can base something that you're doing, like once again, whether it's a business or if it's content, because they're similar, then you can create consistency through those actions.
I think that's one of the most important thing is that finding a way to be consistent because again, it's like and how it works for you. One of the things for me with my channel and why I continue to show up is because I make a lot of the content for like Alani's Little World. I keep doing it because I used to be a kids teacher and I taught children for many years before I started like stepped out and formed my own media company. And, you know, during COVID, I was like watching all the content online and there was maybe Blippi and that was about it. That was good kids content. And that was really, hey, boys and girls, you know, I was just like, wow, this guy's tripping me out right now. And so, you know, I just was like, well, what, maybe we can make something a little bit more grounded for kids and something that's fun and also teaching my daughter how to be more into Um, you don't teach her how to create something, teach her how to build something. But that was my why, and now the why has continued to be part of, the enjoyment that I get from putting things out there in the world, and that helps me keep showing up. All my podcasts I do because I wanna create kind of a video legacy that I can leave for my daughter as well, so that maybe at some point in time, she can watch that and say, "Wow, my dad wasn't a complete and total jackass," you know? And so it's like, it's a nice thing, you know? It's like, because by the time we get old enough to have those conversations with our kids, it it you know, they're busy, you're busier, and it's different, but I wanted to ask this because it plays into that. What's the difference between creators who burn out and creators who grow? Because that consistency there, but I met someone, and I'm actually really happy that my team was able to help a creator who was saying, um, she was about ready to quit YouTube, like
Yeah.
50,000 followers, but she was just the slog. Her and her dad were editing it herself. And then I said, "Hey, no, don't quit. Like, my team will give you a package that we can help you. I love what you're making. Like, you're coming to my daughter's channel. Tell me what you can do, and we will make sure that your channel stays up there." And she's working with my team we're going to give her a great package. We have given her a great package, and just because it's one of the people I believe in. But like, how can people keep going without burning out?
Yeah. It's a really tough place to be in. I've been there myself, and I've known a bunch of people that have also been there. Um, it just what you said really sparked something for me before. I don't even know if this is directly related to this question, but I'll get to that. But what you said about how your daughter seeing the content that you're doing meaning something for you, because then she'll say, I'm not a total jackass and I'm this and that, and she'll see what I was doing all this time. That is not the first time I've heard that. I've heard that before from other people, like almost word for word what you just said. And in terms of like, how does that relate to burning out? Like, how come, Sean, how come you keep doing more stuff? How come you've got multiple podcasts and a business? How have you got all this going on at once and you're still going? Like, you have a solid why, but also it's like it's incredibly important that you're doing this. And I can't stress this enough for creators as well. You are going to feel burnt out. You're going to have days where you experience radio silence. I'm not talking like a couple of decibels of noise. I'm talking radio silence. Nothing happens. You feel like absolute shit. You've got people saying, why don't you just get a government job and it'll all be over? Why don't you do this? You're going to get all of that. And the thing that's going to keep you going is the big reasons why you started in the first place. And sometimes that light seems like it's completely out, but I can assure you, if you are strong enough in what you're doing, it is not. And then the next day or the day after, you will find something will come out again. It's just the nature of how it goes. It's the same way that we go with motivation to go to the gym. It's the same way we don't feel like and do feel like catching up with our friends and family. It's just the way that life goes. So I think if you can understand those points and you can really have a solid why about what it is that you're doing, you'll be just fine. The algorithms
Yeah.
will change, AI will start to create more stuff, and you'll feel a bit uneasy about it. But just keep going. It's like the stock
Yeah.
market. Sometimes it goes up and down. You don't pull all your money out, pull everything out straight away. It's like it's a long term game. You've got this. Just keep pivoting, keep being quick on your feet, and just keep being creative.
Yeah, I love that because it is, you have to be in it for the long haul. And it's like, and it's okay to have days where you don't know what you're doing. It's okay to have days where you're like, well, the other day was kind of hitting a low with some of the content I was creating. And I was in my hometown, and suddenly I just pulled out my camera and I said, we're going to walk and talk. And so I walked up the street and started talking to the camera. And it created a nice little long form video that I put on my podcast. And people enjoyed it. People were like, this is fun because it was authentic and it was coming from a place where, I actually had something fun to say. But I think one of the things too that um, is important, it comes back to the early part of our conversation, is to create systems. Systems help, just like with investing in the stock market, you have systems so that you're not pulling out. You're not freaking out like, oh my goodness, the sky's falling. There's a little dip in the stock market and everyone goes, ah, no. No, instead, you have ways to weather those storms. You have ways to sit there. Okay, today's a slow day. What can we be doing today? What is something that we can do to create? And I think if you can do that, it can help you out. But like, I want to ask you this, because if you had to start a channel today from scratch, what would you start making over the next 30 days? What would you do?
Yeah, so what I would do 100% is I would create the most upside down raw content that I possibly could. As in no filter, no copycat, anything like that. No, this thing works. I would just go straight raw to the camera and just be consistent with that. And I'd set myself a time because see, a little bit different for myself because I've been doing content for a number of years, but particularly for somebody else as well, like if they were to do that same thing, you just have to set yourself a goal or a time and just keep working within that. And a lot of people, it's like a New Year's resolution. If they don't hit their goal within X amount of time, they're like, well, it didn't work, so forget it. I'm on to something else.
Mm,
But the way that content would work is, yeah, you go for something that you're going to do, and then you start to just pivot slightly. So I would be very, very raw. And I'm actually thinking about doing this. It's interesting that you ask that too, because only in the past number of months I've started just being active on LinkedIn. I never really was.
nice.
But since basically starting up my business, I've been like, yeah, I should really just focus a bit more on LinkedIn and try and communicate more through there as well. So we'll see how the next few months go. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't be just copying like, here's the top 5 things that you can do. I wouldn't be doing that. I would be like very direct, and I'd be thinking about people that would be watching my content and speaking directly to their pain points and what it is that keeps them up at night. And I'd really be trying to be a real supporter for those people watching and viewing content.
I love that, man. Well, I want to ask, that leads into my next question. Where can people go to find out more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so right now, in terms of what I actually do, you can find me on LinkedIn, that's for sure. In terms of my software as well, it's in a pre-release situation at the moment. So I'm currently finalizing that build and going to be offering a free trial for people as well. So that will be available at squareglass.io. Um, yeah, and that's basically where you can find me at the moment. I'm not really in a lot of other places, but that's being built over the next number of months as well.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate it, man. Um, and when you are looking at these things, these solutions, I want to ask one last question because I really am interested in this. What do you think are some of the things that people are going to have to consider as we go forward in the next steps of content creation?
Let me think about this for a second because that's a very deep question. So AI is probably on the forefront of content creation at the moment, and the rate that it's evolving is very, very fast, as I'm sure you're aware. I really do think that people are going to have to learn how to utilize AI to create content for the future. And it's a scary thing because it's essentially taken all that we've ever known. We've come from seeing people like even musicians like Michael Jackson and the Beatles, who were like people that would sit in rooms with other songwriters and they create concepts and ideas and all of that. And now we're in 2026, and all of a sudden, AI is giving us ideas and writing our scripts and doing everything for us. So, if you don't know how to use AI to your advantage very well, I really do believe that you'll sink. And you've got to learn how to, number one, get personality out of AI. So, train AI to, it's a very deep topic, but yeah, train AI to have some personality so that when it does recommend you ideas or when it does assess your content or you feed it a transcript of something that you've done, that it's looking at it through a lens that has personality and also can see the vision for your channel and your content. So don't just go by any like basic, hey, ChatGPT, hey, Claude, hey, whatever. What's 5 or 10 ideas that I can quickly do for this piece of content? You're pretty much going to get garbage. And I say that from experience. So really, it's all about learning how to work hand in hand very well with AI. And I feel like if you can do that genuinely, then you actually have like quite a big leg up because number one, you're going to get a lot of speed out of it, and you're going to get typically a pretty good critic for your content as well. And that's one thing that you don't get out of doing 5 or 10 videos, isn't it? Like 5 or 10 videos, you're sitting there looking at it going, is this okay? I don't know. But AI, if you train it really well, can actually help you a lot with furthering your content.
I love that. I love that. And I think that that's it too. I think that a lot of people are afraid of it, but I think that, like you said, if you know how to work with it, it's a tool. Just like any tool that's come along, it's another tool. And I think that if we can teach people to use it as a tool, it's a great tool that can help you be better. But if you are, afraid of it, it's like being afraid of a knife. At some point in time, that knife is it's just a tool that you can use to build to cook a dinner. But,
That's so good. I love that. I love that analogy. The knife thing is perfect.
right? Because that's what I hear people when they freak out by it. It's like, you can get cut and be afraid of a knife. A knife can stab someone, but a knife can also be a tool that you can create a great meal with. It depends on how you use it. And you just have to be
Mhm.
able to see the value in it and then use your own, human nature to make it better.
Yeah, of course. And also, like, just another thing I want to add to this point is that a lot of people, when they first get in front of a camera, they automatically default to just speaking out loud and thinking about how concise and how clear am I being with my speech? Is they're not necessarily thinking about, is the narrative forming? Is this thing flowing really well? They're just trying to get words out and just trying to not look like they got a huge pimple in the middle of their face that everyone's staring at. They're just trying to be as like confident and straight as possible. But what I've noticed as well is a lot of people in that situation, and I don't blame them, this is very natural as humans, that we start just going in circles or talking about ourselves. Whenever you notice yourself doing this when you're starting out and for the future of your content, please just bring yourself back. Hang on a second. I was going off again. I'm going on a tangent. The
Right.
viewer probably doesn't want to hear about the ice cream that I had 3 days ago. Let's just go back and let's just stay on topic. Let's help this person behind the camera. We're helping people here. We're creating content that is helping people either in information, in relationships, in having fun and just like enjoying themselves. That's what we're doing. We're staying on goal, staying on purpose. And through that, through trial and error, you will eventually get there.